Okay, it is 2 o'clock. We are going to go ahead and get started. I see we've got a couple people logged in. Ashley, welcome. Thanks for joining in. And our Marin, thanks for joining us today. Hopefully we'll have a few more trickle in as we get into this. I wanted to start, and I'll just talk directly to you, Ashley and Marin. Do you currently use Canva? And if you'll type your responses to that in the chat, but if you have specific questions, please use the Q&A box instead. So Ashley and Marin, let me know if you are currently using Canva. Oops, I accidentally clicked on something. Here we go. I'm trying to see your answers. Here we go. Okay, so Marin says no. Ashley, what about you? Are you currently using Canva? And if you can hear in the background, it is raining here. Okay, I opened a second window I didn't need. So I'm broadcasting to you from my house. I live in Murray. I usually work in the Salt Lake County office, and it has been thundering and raining and just crazy rain today. So you might hear some thunder and some raindrops in the background. Ashley and Marin, where are you joining us from? And let me know if it's raining in your neck of the woods, and you can use chat for that as well. But again, if you have direct questions, please use the Q&A. And we've had some more people join us. Welcome to Cindy and Mark and Melissa. I've just asked the participants, how many of you are using Canva already? That will kind of gauge what we go over today. Please add your responses in the chat. And if you have any direct questions, just go ahead and put those in the Q&A box. And you can listen to the rain in the background while you kind of add your comments to the chat. Yes or no, do you use Canva? Or do you already have a Canva account created? Maybe you're not using it, but have you taken that first step and created your account? So if you have not already created Canva, or if you've never heard of it, you have no idea what I'm talking about, Canva is a web-based design platform. It is extraordinarily user-friendly. It's free. There are paid versions, but I've been able to do everything that I've needed to do within the free version, which is super nice. So once you log in to Canva, this is your dashboard that you see right when you log in. So you'll notice that here at the top it says create a design. And here it shows you several different design templates that you can use. So I use Canva for a lot of different things. You can use it to create thumbnails for YouTube videos. You can use it to create posts for social media, Instagram stories, Instagram posts, Facebook event headers, Facebook posts. You can use it for flyers. I use it also to create images and graphics for newsletters. There are so many ways you can use it. You can even use it for presentations, like if you want a really nice PowerPoint design. Those are all template options available. So you can see here here's the first row, social media. That's the square layout. And we'll scroll through and you can see Facebook cover, Facebook post, blog banners, email headers. There are many, many different template options that you can use. So as you're kind of approaching your design project, that would be your first step is to, there's that thunder, sort through and kind of look at those templates and figure out, what you need to create and which one you'll want to use. So let's go down here. It says your designs. So once you've started creating content within Canva, that's where all your designs are saved. So they're saved in the cloud. And then it makes it really easy to go back. So you can see here, these are different photos, different titles, but similar layouts. so you can have some consistency. You can just go in and copy an old design and kind of use your design as a template so that you have consistency along what you're designing. So I just wanted to give you that little look at what that homepage looks like within Canva. And now I was looking at the different tutorials that Canva has, and we're going to go through a couple of them. They just take a couple of minutes, and it'll show you some of the basic skills to be able to create content within Canva. So this first one is just beginner basics. So you can see here there's a gray circle, and we're going to change the color of that circle. So you can add a lot of different shapes. This is what it looks like when this is the page that you'll see once you started creating a design. So we have a few new people joining. Thanks for joining us today. I do want to remind you that this webinar will be recorded. So if you can't stay for the whole thing, that recording will be available to you. And again, please post your questions in the Q&A, and then we'll get to those questions as we go. So let's talk about shapes. So this is a shape that's already within the design. So if you're using a template, a lot of times there will be shapes in there already. But say you wanted to add a shape, the way you would do that is over here on the left in this sidebar that says elements. You can see it has the heart, triangle, circle, square. You can add different shapes. If you want to change the color of the shape, you simply click on the shape, and then up here at the top, there's a little box where you can add colors. So you can see that they auto-populate these colors, but what I would recommend doing is adding some extension colors so that you can be on brand with the extension visual identity. So I have that open over here. The place you'll find that visual identity PDF where it lists all the different color codes that you should be using is here at extension.usu.edu/marketing. And it's here on the right-hand side, it says visual identity. So we'll open that up. There we go. So I use these colors quite a bit. If you're looking, say you are trying to keep within the colors of the photo that you're using, you can always use Google to say like dark red color code, or find color codes that way. This is what we'll be using. Let's say we want to make that circle this teal blue. So I'll just select that color code and copy it over to Canva. So to get that specific color, I add this little, or I click the plus sign to add the color and paste in that color code. And now that color is added to this little library for this design, unfortunately that doesn't carry over from design to design. You would have to add, I think that's one of the things with the free version, you can't save things like that. But if you have those color codes handy, you can copy and paste them in and use those extension colors. So that's how you change the basic color of a shape. I want to show you a couple more things with that. Let's see if it will let me. It will not let me with that. I'll show you how to mess with like the line color versus the fill color. Maybe we can just do that right now. So if we were adding, if that circle were not already there, let me show you how you would add a shape in and change those colors. So you can see I've opened the Elements tab, and it's pre-populated with all of these different shapes already, but you can also search. So say I wanted to add a circle. I'm going to search for circle, and here they are. So let's add this one in. White on white, it looks invisible. So we're gonna change it. Okay, that one doesn't have a line either. Here's one. Okay, so you can see there, because it's white, it's really hard to see, but see how it gives us two color boxes now? So let's make the outline of the shape black, and the interior of the shape that same teal blue. So that's hard to see that outline in the black, but you can see how if the shape has more than one color option, it'll give you these two boxes at the top. So you really have a lot of creative control here. I hope that made sense. I'm going to delete that out now, and we're going to move on to the next step. Here's another where we're going to search, use that search. So again, we're using the Elements tab, and we're going to find a hat for this monkey. Now, I don't imagine we'll be doing much like many things like that for extension, but you can find all kinds of graphic elements to add. Say it's a food sense flyer and you want a picture of a plate with a knife and fork. You could search for, you could type in plate, or it's something with gardening. You could type in leaf. You can find all kinds of graphic elements. So we'll add in this little top hat, put it on the monkey. And one thing that is really cool, again, you can use those colors. So say we want it to be a 4-H hat. Let's make it green. There we go. It almost looks like a leprechaun. There we go. There's again another way to use those colored tabs. So now we're going to add a background. So this is like adding a texture or a pattern to the background of your design. So again, it's another tab on the left. It says background. And there are all these pre-populated backgrounds that you can use. So let's add a simple, we'll do polka dots. And again, you can change the color. So let's make it our extension teal. Okay. Next, I'm going to show you how to add an image. So when you see this type of graphic within your design, that means it's the placeholder for an image. So you can use stock photo that's already in Canva, or you can use your own photos. So I usually use free stock photos using Pexels or Pixabay are the two sites that I usually look at. And you can add those to your uploads and then add those images to your design. So the way you do that is you would go here, upload an image, and you'd pull that from your computer. But since I already have quite a few images, trying to find, I've got so many things open with Zoom. Here we go, there's the cancel. So let's use an image we already have. It says search for fruit. So let's go back to photos. I do have images of fruit, but we'll search for one. So you just type in fruit, and you can see here, this one has the $ and says premium. So that one is not free to use, but some of them will say free. So you can kind of, look through, and usually within the free images, there are plenty that will work. So you can see this image. I'm just clicking on it and dragging it around. It just placed it, when I first added it, it just placed it into the design. But then, let me show you that again. See how it's on top? But once I click on it, and it kind of pops itself into that box. So now that photographic is acting as a frame and containing that image. Now say, let's delete that photo out, and say we used this image, and I really want to see all of the strawberry. I don't like that that's cut off. I'm going to double click on this image, and you can see now it allows us to move the photo within that frame. So if you want all the strawberries, you can move it down like that. Then you would just click done, and it's cropped it within that frame. All right, so this is going to show you how to use templates. So if you have not, so once you pick from that home page, I'll show you here, what type of design you want, which essentially what you're doing is setting the dimensions of the design. So for example, if we're doing a Facebook post, the ratio is 940 by 788 pixels. Then oops. Then you'll pick your template. So on the left-hand side again, we have on the top it says templates. And here you can scroll through, and there are hundreds and hundreds of different templates already created for you. It's easy to look at one template and think, oh, that's not going to work for me. Like, this is about a coffee shop. Like, that has nothing to do with what I want. But try and have an open mind. I try and think, like, okay, I'm looking for, like, a lot of times I'll already have the image that I want to use. I'll think, okay, my image is portrait, like it's a vertical image. So I'm looking for a template that will lend itself well to that. Or I'm looking for a template that has very little text and that's really bold. Or, you know, or I want to put more text in because it's more of a flyer. I want all the information contained within the template. So think about those things, like that end goal that you want as you're looking at templates, to kind of help you find the one that you like the best. So let's pick a template. This one is pretty and it has succulents on it, which I love. Oh, hold on. Oh, that says that's 1 of 10. This is a presentation. So we'll say we'll pick this template. That's how you would select your template. And I'll talk a little bit more about changing templates and the rules for that in just a minute. So that's the end of that tutorial. You can find, if you Google Canva tutorials, you can find video tutorials that just demonstrate and these hands-on walk you through. I'd recommend that after we're finished here, you open these up and try it yourself, use your own images and see what you can come up with. So let's look at some more Canva tools. This kind of covers some basic design techniques as well. Canva makes it really easy for people who are not designers like me to create really beautiful graphics that we can use for our work. So this whole tutorial has learn and do. So it says on dark backgrounds, make your text white. On light backgrounds, make your text dark. Pretty intuitive stuff. So here's how you change the color of the text. It's very similar to what you do with changing the color of a shape. So you can see each of these text elements is separate. It's not like in Microsoft Word where you hit enter a bunch of times to get that space. They move independently of each other. They're their own text boxes. So we're going to select this text box and we're going to make it a different color. So up here you have all your text options. So here's the font name, the font size. Here's where you change text color. Let's change it to white, and we'll change the name color as well to blue. So it makes it more visible. This says always use grids for your images. Now I showed you this a little already. When there's this image graphic, that is your frame for the image. And you can add these in if you're making designs, but a lot of templates will already have those. They may already have an image there. So for example, I'm going to click and drag this in. So you may open up a template and there's already an image there, but it's not the one that you want. So then you would simply find the image that you want. Let's do chickens, and we'll add it into that frame. Pretty simple. So it says drag and drop the image on top of the grid and it will snap. So you snap it into that photo frame. Okay, so this says when placing text over an image, you can place a shape on top of the image so the text is easier to read. Pick a shape and place it over the pizza, add text, and write lunch special $10. So if we were to add, let me show you an example. I went to the text tab on the left, and you can see all of these. These are like mini text layouts that you can use. If I place this over the pizza, it's a little bit busy. We'll make it smaller. So you can see, instead of having to use this font size tool at the top, you can also simply use the bounding box to control the size. And to move the shape is what I want to do. So that's a little bit busy on top of the pizza. So what you can then do is go to your Elements tab on the left, and we're going to add in, let's do a square. I'm resizing it to fit on the pizza. I'm going to change the color to a lighter gray. I'm going to send it backward a little bit so it's behind the text. So I'll come up here where it says position in the top right of the menu bar, and say click backward so it goes behind the text but yet still in front of the pizza. And I'm also going to make this a little bit transparent so you can still see the image of the pizza behind it. So that's this little graphic up here, which when you hover over says transparency. My Zoom window is getting in the way. And we're just going to make it a little bit more transparent. And I could even change this text to white to have more consistency with, though that's not as, you know, the contrast is not as great. So maybe you'd want to increase the transparency. Oh, that makes it worse. See, you learn things as you play around with it. You find that different things work. So I highly recommend that you kind of play around with this and see what you like, and see. You can always have another set of eyes look at your design and give you feedback and make suggestions. So that's one way you can take an existing design and add an element to make it more readable. Oh, we have a Q&A question. Ashley says, do you know if there's a template for a booklet style newsletter? So Ashley, are you talking about a printed newsletter? Why don't you let me know in the chat if you'll describe a little bit more what kind of newsletter you are talking about. Okay, so this is something I already showed you. When you need to adjust a photo within a photo frame, you double click on the photo and then you can move it within that photo frame and then accept your changes. So this says grids are a great way to lay out your images. Do this next task. Search for grids, upload your own photos, and add them to the grid. All right, so we'll come over here. I just searched for grid. And these are all different templates that have grids. So here's a nice simple grid, and let's add our own photos. So let's keep it within the food theme. These are some photos from Food Sense. I'm just gonna click and drag it in. So we're taken by Candy Merritt. She does amazing food photography. The Eat Well Utah blog. And we'll change we'll have it say meal. And I'm gonna delete that thing that says it's coffee time. Now you can see here that these 3 blocks of text are all connected. So if I try and move it, they all move together. So if I want to change just the it's coffee time or delete that, I have to ungroup these different pieces of text, blocks of text. So I go up to the top and I say ungroup. And now you can see if I click on this, it's by itself. And you can press delete on your keyboard, or you can use the garbage can at the top. So there's that. That's the end of that tutorial. Let's move on to the next one. Ashley, I'm still curious what kind of newsletter you're talking about. I'd love to answer your question. Okay, yes, printed 11 by 17 single page front and back booklet. You know, that is not a template that I have used before, but I would definitely look within Canva and look for that template style. The other thing that I would recommend doing is maybe seeing what other kind of newsletter template, well, let's look. But you could always create your Canva layout, save it as a image file. So you can save them as, I think you can save them as PDFs even. So say I wanted to save this down, you'd come up here when you're finished with your design, you'd say download. So here are your options. You could save it as a PDF and you could combine those PDFs in Acrobat or however you'd like to do that, or if it's multiple pages, and then, or you could do a JPEG or a PNG and then use those images and lay them out, you know, using, I don't know what software you're currently using to create your newsletters, but you could do the layouts in Canva. And then when you need to print, I don't know if you're sending to a printer, but just lay them out on 11 by 17 in the order that you want. Does that make sense? I don't feel like I explained that very well, but if they do not have the 11 by 17 format, I would do them in letter size and then take those designs and put them into an 11 by 17 format outside of Canva. But let's just see what kind of newsletter stuff they have. Newsletter, 8.5 by 11. So I'm just navigating to this from the home page, you can see. Can you guys hear that thunder? It's crazy. So lots of different newsletter templates here that you could look through. And find one that you like and kind of customize it to work for you. I hope that answered your question. Okay, let's move on. This little tutorial is called Less is More. Especially, how many of you, let me know in the chat, how many of you, let me know what ways you feel like you would like to use Canva. I'm really curious how many of you will use it for social media, because I think this Less is More is a really good lesson for creating graphics for social media. It's a really good idea to keep your designs simple and not overwhelm people with too many elements or too much text within your image. So here are some ideas to keep things simple. So here it says, change the color, limit your colors. So you can see on this left-hand side, they've limited it to a really basic color scheme. So say they're searching for each of these graphics within Canva, and each one is a different color, which you'll find. You know, you can find all different kinds of icons, and they might all be different colors. It's really easy to change them. You just go in here, and you may not even want to use any of the colors that Canva suggests or that they put in, you know, automatically made the graphics those colors. You may want to use only extension colors. So you go in here and you can change the color of the graphics. Here it says, avoid color by limiting your graphic elements. So you can see on the left, they took out the bounding box and the little graphic at the top to make it much simpler. Think about what's really necessary. So they're suggesting to delete out all of these stars. And I think these little lessons are great because it's really easy to see why they are suggesting these things. Okay. Here it says, substitute text with icons to cut down on reading time. This is a great hint for social media. And I think it would work really well for an electronic newsletter as well, where you have the capability of clicking and hyperlinking images. So you can see here, their first example says, click on this image to check out our new products. And they replace that with the icon for clicking. It says, check out our new products. So here they're saying, to delete out this text and replace it with the thumbs up. So if that were in a newsletter, I would hyperlink that to your Facebook page so people could click on it and go and like your page. All right. And this says, avoid using too many fonts and keep type styles to keep your design simple. I think that's really great advice. This says change the text to use just 2 fonts. So you can see here there are 3 Now you might think, well, how do I know what fonts those are? Because they're already existing within the design. I'm just going to click on this, and it tells you at the top that that's Lato Heavy, and the bottom one, let's see what that one is Montserrat Light. I'm doing a really good job pronouncing all these font names. So I like that bottom font better. So let's change it to that. We'll go up here to our Fonts tab. We'll select that font. And now it just looks a little bit better. Okay, this says use your forward and backward to move things within your design. So we already did this once. I'll show you again. I clicked on the yellow square. I want it to be behind the text. So I'll come up here. Maybe. There we go. Nope, not their position. Sorry about that. And we'll say backward. Okay. And that's the end of that one. So I have one more little tutorial, and then I want to just show you, answer any questions you have, and show you a few more tricks within Canva or things that you can do. So this one is about consistent branding. And I feel like this is where this extension Visual Identity really comes in, because it suggests font colors. It talks to you about how to use the logo, like how big the logo needs to be and spacing around the logo, which I think is on page 19. Let's scroll down. Tell me in the chat how many of you have ever looked at this Visual Identity before. I feel like it's a little hidden treasure, but once you know about it, it's really helpful. Sorry, it's kind of, the logo info is a little bit toward the end. So here it's showing the extension word marks. And here it talks about spacing. So you can see that you need to leave this much area around the logo in your designs. The same as the letter U, the same space. That's the same as the size of the letter U. That was a really contrived way of saying that. but I feel like this illustration shows it really well, what you need to do. Ashley has used this. Awesome. Ashley, thanks for engaging. I feel like a little less like I'm just talking to myself here. And this tells you about how big you need to make the logo. And it goes through 4H as well. So definitely use this resource. Again, you can find it at extension.usu.edu/marketing, the visual identity. So let's come back to branding. So this says keep your font combinations the same across your designs. So you can see here what this one font is different. So we're going to make it the same, which is Volcorn. We'll go up and change that. And you can see now this is in all caps while the others are not. So we're going to change that, which you do here. You can change it from uppercase to sentence case, which is a really good tool. It makes it really easy to make that change and see what you like better. This talks about color palette. It says change the color of the words and logo to light purple. So again, you'll just change the colors, and we can change that logo color, make everything white. Use consistent composition. So we're going to move things around to match. So we'll put the logo at the top. Again, these are kind of basic things, but sometimes we forget. We get in the thick of making our designs and we forget these little tips. This is a really interesting tip, and this applies, this is a little extra bonus knowledge for you. Filters. So how many of you are using social media as like for your programs or for your jobs, specifically Instagram? Now, you can use filters in Instagram, and the recommendation is to pick one and stick with it. So if you're using a filter, use it consistently so that you maintain consistency throughout your messaging. So this, we're trying to match the filter on this photo. So we're going to click on the photo, add the solar filter. So any image you can do this. You go to the top and you say filter, and we'll choose the one that says solar. And now we're going to adjust it, adjust the saturation. So we'll do that here. And we're going to adjust it to -10. So I'll slide that bar, -10. And it really changes the look of the image. Now, sometimes I use filters and adjustments if the photo that I'm using, if it's difficult to see the text in the front, like maybe the photo is too light or too dark, you can make some small adjustments so that the text is more legible. You can play around with that, but if you want to use filters, again, try and keep it consistent. Or maybe, you know, like when you're doing serious, like I heard one Instagrammer suggest, like when she's trying to catch people's attention and talking serious, like sharing knowledge, she uses a black and white filter, and people know when they see that black and white filter in their stories that they need to turn their sound on and listen because she's talking real or whatever. So just some little different ways to use filters that maybe we aren't conscious of as consumers of graphics, but do impact the way we interact with those that content. Okay, this says keep the placement of your logo and elements consistent. So maybe you always put the extension logo in the bottom right-hand corner or the top left-hand corner or wherever that might be. Keep it consistent. So we're going to shrink this down and put it in the top. Now, can you see those little purple lines? That kind of helps you keep your line. It's trying to snap to the images on the left-hand side of the screen, but those are helpful as you're trying to keep things centered or aligned within the design. All right, so let's move on to the next one. That's the end of that tutorial. All right, so let's talk about templates. My main advice for using templates, like I said, you're going to see a template and the images and text, and it's going to be like maybe the example I showed you, it was about coffee. It was like a coffee shop, and the colors were like brown and yellow. And you might think, well, that doesn't really fit with our brand or the message that I'm wanting to get. But if you try and look past that to the elements of the design, think about, okay, well, I can change the colors and swap out the image. How can you use those designs to promote your programs or promote what you're doing? My main advice is to try to only change 2 things. Because once you start messing with more than just 2 things, then you're losing some of the integrity of the design. And these designs actually are created by professionals, people who know what they're doing and can create some really beautiful designs. So let's look at Instagram post, and I'll show you some examples. We'll create a post. Would anyone like to use something of their own as an example? If you want me to create a little graphic for you, let me know, and we can do a hands-on thing, make it a real Instagram post for you. So we're going to come over here. It says fresh and organic. Okay, so let's try and keep to our only changing 2 things rule, which that does not apply to text or image, I don't think, because I mean, you want the image to match what you're doing. So I have a live video coming up tomorrow with Helen Muntz, and we are going to talk about gardening, getting your kids to garden. So let's use that as an example. So I'm going to upload an image of kids gardening, if I can find it. Okay, here's a little kid gardening. Oh, that one's better. So now that's showing up in my upload gallery. Adding it into the design. It doesn't want to go into my background. Now will it work? See, it doesn't always, sometimes you have to play around with things. So that should pop in like I was showing you in the tutorial, but it's not, and that's okay. So now we have to think about, okay, how are we going to work around that? So there are a couple of things we can do. First of all, we can delete out that lemon picture and delete out the black box. Let's just add in a photo element and see if we can get that frame to work. Okay, here's a square photo frame. Perfect. We want that to be behind the text. So we're going to go to position and send it to the back. There we go. Now let's see if our photo will pop in there. It still doesn't. Oh, there we go. We did it. So you can see, you could also just resize the photo, and you can crop photos within Canva if you would rather do it that way. So now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, maybe the text in front of this image isn't the best thing because it kind of, you know, the photo that I have is not really a background kind of photo that fits well with the text. So maybe I decide I want to change the template. So I'm going to choose one where the focus is more on an image. Okay. Let's use this one. And I'm going to add that same photo in. Let's see if it works. Oh, it worked this time. Okay, so really cute. Now let's change some of the colors. So Extension does have some greens. Let's scroll way up to the top and see if we can do this. There we go. The color codes are on page 3. So let's use the bright green. I'm going to copy that. Let's use the bright green. Oh, that's an image. So that actually I can't change. But maybe we can find a different image. Let's look up texture, because that's kind of what that image is lending to the design, is an interesting texture. Look, we could do a paper towel texture. Here's one that's just white. Oh, but it's premium, so we would have to pay for that. So you can, maybe we decide we want to just take that out. Let's change the color of this to a green. And let's take out the pink. Is this an image too? Yes. So and let's make the squiggles Aggie blue. So I feel like I've already changed one thing by deleting out those photos. So there we've kind of changed that design to make it our own. And maybe we'll say, get your kids in the garden. See, now that changed it a little bit because the original design, it was one line and not two. So I'm going to rethink that and see if I can make it just one line. Kids in the garden. Join us live this Friday to learn why you should into gardening. So there's an example of how you can take a design and kind of customize it to what you want, and you could play around with the colors and kind of make it your own. I'm trying to think what else. Elements. There are other really useful elements that I like to use. You can add in lines. You can see lines here. Here's some of the basic little graphics I told you about that you can search for, like the play button. That's a really great one, especially if you're using that in a web newsletter, an e-newsletter where you want to link it. Say it's a video and you put an image in with the play button, and when they click on that, it links them to a YouTube video. That's a great one. Here's, you know, a cute little design element, things like that. The other one I wanted to show you, like if I search for arrow, you know, if you wanted to point to something specific, you can move things around, you know, like say you want to emphasize kids in the garden or whatever that might be. Lots of really useful images. Most of them are free. You know, a few of them you do have to pay for, but there's so much that you can do within these free options in Canva. Trying to think if there's anything else I didn't cover. Again, I showed you, here's where you change the title. So it'll pre-populate something in. So maybe I want this to be titled Facebook Live and the date, May 24th, because that's when we'll be live. You can change the title there, and then that will be the file name once you download it. So then you'd say download, you choose your file type, you know, whatever you want that to be, and you would say download. The last thing that I wanted to share with you is that there isn't a mobile app for Canva, which I have used a little bit. Most of the time when I'm using Canva for work, I do it from my desktop because that's where I have access to more images and things like that. But there is a mobile app. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and see if I can just show you this. So you can download the app, use your same login information. And if you know, it's really simple to use photographs that you've taken, photos that you have stored on your phone. I'm just trying to find where I have it. Here we go. If you want it, the things I would suggest using Canva mobile for are like if you just want to create a quick something for social media, that's what I would recommend using it for. I've used it personally to create icons for story highlights within Instagram, just really simple image and text. I'm going to see if I can show you how to do that really quick. And it's really, it's a little more difficult than doing it on your desktop because the way you navigate is a little different because you're using your finger and you're not using a mouse. And that's really hard to see, but it has the same options. Create a new design. It gives you the same options you would have on your desktop: Instagram post, story, logo, Facebook post, flyer, poster, invitation, etc. And it has the same templates that you can use. And I would just, if that's something you're interested in doing, I would just recommend playing around with it a little bit. Again, it's a great tool for creating quick things that look a little bit more professional. Now, I think I'm about ready to wrap up. If you have any more questions, please type them in the question and answer box. And I just wanted to mention one last thing. There is a new site that's very similar to Canva that I am starting to explore called Easil, E-A-S-I-L. I will put a link in the chat. And I have not yet used it, but once I do, I think it has some really cool features, and I will be doing a training I will do another webinar on easel. So I put that link. It's just easil.com. So you can check that out if that's something you're interested in. There is a free version. Very similar capabilities to Canva. But I use Canva quite a bit. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I would love to talk with you, and I'm always game to give feedback on designs. So I would love to hear from you. Any questions before we wrap up? I don't see any coming in. Okay, well, thank you again, those of you who tuned in. I really appreciate your input, and I'm glad that you're here. I do want to remind you that this webinar has been recorded and will be available to you to watch again. I highly recommend checking out the tutorials that Canva has that we went through and trying them out for yourself. It's a great way to get started and kind of get more comfortable within Canva and before you jump into making your own designs. And with that, I think we will wrap it up. All right, thank you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday and make it through the rest of your week.